Hello, everyone. Welcome to another Alumni Speak. This is a production of the Morgan State Entrepreneurial Alumni Chapter. My name is Sam Henry. I'm the Vice President, and I also have the privilege of serving as Program Chair. I will be hosting this evening. Alumni Speak is our monthly event. It's a monthly series that we've been doing to basically highlight entrepreneurs that graduated from Morgan State University to get an understanding of different industries. Each month we highlight a different industry and have a panel of alumni who have businesses in that industry. So this month we'll be highlighting the legal industry. So we have some legal professionals who have their own practices in the legal industry. And a little bit more about MEAC itself. So MEAC, or MSU Entrepreneurship Alumni Chapter, the abbreviation is MEAC. And our mission is to maintain a network of MSU alum entrepreneurs for business opportunities and to serve as an entrepreneurial development resource for students, the overall university, and the surrounding community. So tonight we have two alum. One is Miss Ieesha Gillis of Gillis Law, and you see her already joined us. And also joining us tonight a little bit later will be Miss Marlene Johnson of Marlene Johnson Law. Let me look and make sure I got her name, her company correctly. I believe it's that. I believe her practice is named after her. It's in her own name. All right. So welcome, Aisha. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Great, great. So, okay, looks like Marlene has just joined us as well.
Hi.
Hey, Marlene.
How you doing?
Thanks for joining us tonight.
Sure.
All right. So let's jump right in. Aisha, can you tell us a little bit about Gillis Law, about when you started and what exactly what do you specialize in?
Okay, well, hi again. I'm Aisha Gillis, and I started Gillis Law last year in October of 2015 officially, and I'm still in kind of the launching phase of my practice. I specialize in intellectual property, the transactional aspects for patents, trademarks, and copyrights.
Cool. Cool, cool, cool. And Marlene, can you tell us a little bit more about your practice?
Sure. I have a general practice for the most part. I do a lot of different areas of the law, from family, personal injury, estate administration, estate planning, real estate, pretty much most things except for criminal and medical malpractice I do.
Interesting, interesting. And what were you, for a question for both of you, what were your majors at Morgan State?
I was an economics major.
Okay, Aisha?
I major in electrical engineering.
Cool, interesting. Okay, all right. So kind of going into some of the other questions we have. So how did, and I guess let's start with Aisha. How did you transition from electrical engineering to law? At what point in your career did you decide to move into law? Or is it something that you knew you wanted to do even while you were at Morgan and doing engineering?
Well, mostly it was something that was introduced at Morgan when I was an undergraduate, and I did meet a couple of graduates from the engineering program who were lawyers. So that, number one, just sparked my interest, and I thought that was really something I should look into, but I didn't at the time. I ended up attending Michigan State for graduate school, and while I was pursuing my master's degree, they also had a panel with some of their engineering graduates who were attorneys. And at that time, they were actual intellectual property attorneys, and that is what like sparked my interest because I love engineering, but I knew I wanted to do something different in the field. So learning about intellectual property law and at that time patent law in particular really made me want to pursue getting into the legal field.
All right, interesting. And Marlene, can you tell us about your journey from economics to into the legal field?
Well, the best I can say is that I always wanted to be a lawyer. Wasn't really sure, I just, you saw Claire Huxtable. She was a lawyer. I never really knew about the practice of law and the industry and the business and all that stuff. When I got to Morgan, I chose economics because it was a great fallback position if the whole law school thing didn't work out.
Okay.
So I figured I could do something in business, and so I chose economics. While I was at Morgan, I became very interested in corporate law. And then when I got to law school, I worked for an attorney, Gerald Smith, and he opened my eyes to having a general practice and having a lot of knowledge about a lot of different areas of law. And so that's how I just started out. I worked at Legal Aid for a year and a half, and then I started on my own. Gerald gave me space in his building, and I was able to start, and I've been going strong ever since.
Interesting. So you started your own practice inside of somebody else's.
Yeah, So what he was my mentor. So
Okay.
he and his daughter, they took me on and showed me everything that I needed to know. And he gave me some space in the basement of his building. He said, look, I'll give you several months, no rent, get a chance to build up your clients and your client base. And I worked very hard. He gave me some cases, and I made a go of it. And I was blessed in that respect because I wasn't alone. So I was able to develop my own practice, but I also was able to take everything to him until I was sure that I knew what I was doing. Because in the beginning, you don't know what you're doing. I don't know what happened to Sam. Sam, are you still there? Aisha, can you hear Sam?
No, I don't. Okay, folks.
So, well, I guess maybe we could pick up with the conversation. Maybe he got stuck somehow. Did you feel the same way when you started, Aisha? I know you're not too long from starting, but still, I know by now you figured out a whole bunch of stuff.
Well, I mean, everything that you just said was actually what I'm going through right now, just trying to figure out how to build it in this kind of really competitive type space, because I never, when I started law school, I never had interest in any other type of law except for intellectual property.
Mm-hmm.
So that kind of, because it's niche, is, it's a blessing and a curse. It's a blessing because that's my interest in my field, but then it's also, a curse because it kind of closes out the type of clients that I can, that I would go after. And
But it's a great opportunity because honestly, there are not that many African American IP attorneys that work in this area. So the most when I get clients, I do copyright work and I can do trademark work, but I don't do patent work. So you really have the ability, because I only know, I think, one other attorney in the city, but it's just a matter of getting your name out there, like you said, and getting people to know that you're there and this is what you do. But I know that you will develop those networks, and working is a great opportunity to develop networks.
right, yeah, that, and exactly what you said. Actually, because it's intellectual property, I've been obviously seeking a lot of a patent attorney. So a lot of the people I've met are actually outside of Maryland, and he's been helping. I actually do have somebody who's been like a mentor for me. He's a solo attorney in Indiana, and he's been helping me a lot as far as just getting started and just brainstorming ways to market and who to market to, and that type of work. So that's kind of where I'm at right now. So just still like building the client base, because I do recognize that it's more, for me, it's more business to business as opposed to getting individuals. So that's where I'm at.
Okay. Well, I have your email because I think Sam sent it to me, so we can talk offline about that too.
Okay, I appreciate that.
No problem. I see Sam is back. Sorry, Sam, we didn't want to take over for you, but I saw you were having technical difficulties.
I am back, and no problem at all. Thank you all for filling in. We want to hear you, more of you and less of me. So that's fine. That's no problem at all. And if that happens again, feel free to to keep conversing between the two of you. That's absolutely fine.
Okay.
So moving along here, how did you all and Marlene, how long have you been in business?
I've been in business since '99. So what is that?
Like 17 years.
Oh my goodness, I feel so old.
So how did you you talked about kind of the story of how you got started, but in a technical sense, how did you actually establish your own practice? Like, was that just, hey, did you just create an LLC? What type of entity did you create, and how did you go about creating it?
Initially, so the good fortune is I'm a lawyer. That was what I did. I learned how to do that from Gerald. So in terms of starting up my firm, I did initially do an LLC.
Okay.
And like I said, from talking to Gerald, I was able to understand a little bit more and the work that I did. And I actually took several classes in law school having to do with business and corporate work. So I was able to choose that as my entity. I later changed over to a PC, which is a professional corporation, and that's a designation that is only available for professional services like accountants and things like that, and lawyers and things like that. So once I was sure about the entity that I wanted to establish, and the reason I chose the LLC really was because it was just simply easier for me starting out. And I really didn't have some of the concerns that maybe other entities would have, which would cause them to look a little bit differently as to the type of corporation. But really, particularly when you're dealing with a service organization or a service structure, meaning you're offering a service rather than a product, it is a lot easier than if you have to stock shelves and things like that. Really, my dad bought me a computer, so I used my computer, and it really was my sweat equity is what I contributed to it. And like I said, I was blessed because I got my dad who bought me the computer, and then my mom gave me a gift certificate for some supplies, and I was ready to go. All I needed was my brain. I think that other entities or other types of businesses probably need to put a little bit more into it. My brain is the commodity that I'm offering. That's what I'm offering. So, as long as I had my brain straight and I could sit down and put together what I needed, I was good. Now, for me, I am a systems person. That's just how I am. So I will sit down and set up a system very quickly. That worked for my benefit and still does work for my benefit in terms of my practice. I do advise people that when you are starting out, you really need to devote adequate time to develop the how and how you're going to do your business. You can't just sit down and say, oh, well, I'm going to make clothes or I'm going to make websites for people. How are you going to do it? Because that's what your processes that you develop will distinguish you from others in the market. Because attorneys really come dime a dozen. Now, good attorneys do not come dime a dozen. And the difference is how you develop yourself and how you cultivate the product that you're offering.
Awesome. Okay. And Aisha, how did you get set up on the as far as your entity structure, and how did you decide on how to create, what kind of entity you wanted to create?
Well, because I was starting out, I sought my mentor, who's Cedric Who in Indiana. He's also a patent attorney, and he has a solo firm. And so to me, it makes he was the person that I knew, and he suggested as to starting out was to start with an LLC, and so that's what I decided to go with. And because I do more federal patents and trademarks, it made my, I guess, overhead even lower because I don't really need office space as far as when I work with my clients virtually, and I can do that from my home or anywhere else. And so for me, setting up it is more technical because it is more web-based software that I would need to really get started as far as interacting with clients.
Okay, okay. And so my next question, I think you two were kind of talking about this when I dropped off the last time, but how do you market your legal services? How do you go about finding and acquiring new customers?
For me,
Either anyone can start.
for me, the majority of clients come to me by word of mouth.
Okay.
When you're dealing with a service industry, you can market, but your strongest marketing tool are your networks, the networks that you're involved in. Um, I think that most of the advertising that I do really is because I want to throw support behind somebody. I tried some web-based marketing on some websites before. It didn't work well with me. With attorneys, we also have the ability to purchase leads. And what leads are is you have these websites like NOLO, Martindale Hubble, lawyers.com, all of those where people go to those websites to look for attorneys if they don't know an attorney.
Mm-hmm.
And they will send leads to you, and it's your job to cultivate that lead. In essence, that's a network, but it's a paid network. I get more clients just by word of mouth, and that's just to be totally honest with you. I am looking now to broaden my base, and so I'm looking into other things, and like this Google Hangouts thing is great. So the old lady that I am was not familiar with this, but don't worry, Sam, you're going to get a couple calls after this to show me how to do this. But I know now with YouTube and Facebook Live and Periscope, those are all viable ways to market. I think that when you are in business, you need to choose a marketing plan that works for your type of business. And I think with more service-oriented businesses, word of mouth carries you a long way, and networking carries you a long way.
Awesome. And Aisha, I guess you are kind of still putting that plan together of how to acquire and find customers. But what have you been doing so far? What have you found that's helped you out so far?
Well, in the same vein, I don't think anything beats in-person contact. I find that when I attend, conferences or tech events, because I'm in intellectual property, I become more involved in the tech community in Baltimore and Washington, D.C., and it's the surrounding area. So I find myself in that area and just putting feelers out in that way, because a lot of times when I meet entrepreneurs, a lot of them may not have considered their intellectual property protection, and they also probably do not even know a lawyer. So just meeting me has already sparked that kind of interest of, okay, well, maybe I can go in this direction. And so I find that that type of interaction to be helpful.
Interesting. And so you mentioned that as far as networking in the tech industry, you've been going to some events. Can you tell us about maybe a few of the events that you frequent?
Well, I've attended locally, or I guess well, it's a national event, but in the local areas, is one is a tech breakfast where it's just a morning show and tell for startups that are showing their product or whatever, and then it just invites the whole tech community in the area, and so that's one of the ones I've obviously attended a few of the, it's not the same type of event, but I've attended a few of the hackathons that you've hosted at Morgan, and so that's also helped me just to see it from the student perspective, and also I've attended uh, in Baltimore. There's Innovation Week that happens yearly, and so I've attended a few of those.
Cool. And so just quick note for anyone watching, these events are in and around the Baltimore area. I think, are both of you based in Baltimore?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So we talked a little bit about marketing. We talked a little bit about getting set up. Okay. So now we're we've got the business going. We're already into it. We're finding customers. What successes or major developments in your business have come along since starting that have kind of either helped spring you forward or just helped you accelerate what you're doing? Well, let's just say major turning points, major things, major times where you made big decisions that have changed the trajectory of your business, or maybe changed the vision of your business from where it started to maybe something new that you decided to take on.
I don't know if this is directly an answer. I think I think for me as an entrepreneur, there were certain epiphanies that I had that made me better in business. And then my business benefited from it.
Okay.
I think the first thing that I had to deal with me and my esteem and my confidence in my ability to practice law successfully. And I think when I first started, I was not very sure. And, I said this before, I didn't know what I was doing. When you first start, you don't know everything that there is to know, and I still don't know everything that there is to know about the practice of law. But I think there came a time for me that I really said, I can do this. And I think when I had confidence in myself, my clients had more confidence in me. And so it allowed me, one, to take on other areas of the law that I was not, or issues that I was not as familiar with, because I figured that I could figure my way through. The other thing that was an epiphany for me as an entrepreneur was that I was not cut out to help everybody.
What do you mean by that?
Meaning that I think a lot of times when you're in business, you try to get all the business that you can,
Mm-hmm.
because you don't know if somebody else is going to come right behind it. And so a lot of times I see entrepreneurs, and I did the same thing, thinking that I had to take every client that came in the door.
Okay.
And what ended up happening, instead of making a good selection about whether or not it's a good fit, and what I started doing, and I noticed that I started doing, was that I would just take clients instead of analyzing, is this a good client to take? Is this client going to further me as an attorney in terms of my reputation and my knowledge base? And is it a good fit? Because I am a particular type of person. I bring my person to the table as an attorney. I'm not that person that's going to sit there and fight for the win. I'm going to fight for what makes sense for my client. And every client doesn't like that. So that was an epiphany for me, that I don't have to take every case. And by realizing that, I also was able to give my clients better representation because I wasn't just taking everything that came in the door. So I had time to really cultivate the clients that I had. And I think that it increased the quality of my representation. I think those were the two biggest epiphanies for me that kind of changed my my practice and allowed me to, in my estimation, do better.
Okay. So kind of along that line of thought, can you give us example of what's the profile of a client or type of case that you would take that you would not take now that you may have taken earlier in your business career? Well, actually, let's look at the positive side. Let's look at the profile of the client that you do take now, that you like to focus on now, as opposed to what you may have, taken in the past.
If my client is clear about what they really want and there is a viable path to get there.
Okay.
Within reason. And let me put this in the context of family law, because this is where I learned the lesson the best.
Oh, okay.
So if I'll give you an example. I had a client that came to me that they just wanted to stick it to the other parent. I'm not that type of attorney.
Mm-hmm.
I have a client now that really is interested in making sure that both parents are involved in the children's lives, and they just need help figuring out how to make that happen. That is the client for me. Now, is the other client not entitled to representation? No, they absolutely are entitled to representation. They're just not entitled to representation by the law office of Marlene Johnson, PC.
All right.
And I had to accept that was okay, because what I learned is that if you take a client that you don't match adequately with, you're going to end up in a dispute. Bottom line. Because how can two people walk together unless they agree? And so if you have, and that's even with, they say the customer is always right. Not so much. The customer doesn't always have to be right, but you have to treat them with respect. And so that's the type of client I want. Somebody who sees the end, is willing to work towards the end, and sees that the end is possible. Because there are plenty of clients I'll turn away saying, I can take your money. However, I don't think what you want is possible or is going to end in the best way for you.
Mm-hmm.
Because some people just want their day in court, and their day in court may cost them $20,000 or $30,000, and then $15,000 in, they don't want to go the whole way. So you have to kind of see ahead for your client to make sure you're making a decision that's best for you, and that's it has to be best for you, because otherwise you could ruin your reputation that way. And not that you're not looking out for the client, but at the end of the day, a happy client will refer you clients.
Mm-hmm.
And so you have to always kind of keep that business aspect in mind. What can I do to make sure that, one, I live to practice another day, and two, that I am able to get this client to refer other clients, because your goal should not just be this client, but what other clients I can get from this client.
Awesome. Okay. Moving right along with the discussion, let's talk about company structure. So right now, Marlene, do you have other people in your office working under you? Is it how does your office?
Yeah, I have both contractors and employees working under me, and some interns.
Okay, that's interesting. So let's talk about what types of things do you use a contractor for? What types of things do you prefer a full-time person for? And what types of things, tasks, and roles and responsibilities would you give to an intern?
So interns normally get things like filing. They'll help me to develop structure, and maybe I'll use them to brainstorm. I'll give you a perfect example. The intern I have now, she does filing, and the reason she does filing is because she wants to go to law school. So by exposing her to the papers that we deal with, it's a way for me to cross-train her in a lot of different areas, and she can get more knowledge because she knows what these papers are. So when she goes to law school and someone speaks up who is a plaintiff, who is a defendant, what is a complaint, all those things, she's already familiar with those because she's seen those. I also have them working on things like setting up articles and doing some research, basic level things I have interns do. Now, my employees and contractors, I think that's more fluid. It really depends on the person and what they're offering. My employees, everybody who manages cases in my office, um, they have a set area that they work in. So we do team case management in my office.
And can you explain that?
Yeah, okay. So what team case management is so I have 10 people in my office. I would have 3 working in bankruptcy exclusively, 3 maybe working in, or 2, 1 or 2 in real estate. So I would divide them according to the subject matter.
Okay.
And that's all they work on, is the cases that come in the door with that particular subject matter. Now we do some cross training. So I have one person who's in litigation, and they handle family, and then all types of litigation. So it'll be family, corporate litigation, all that kind of stuff. And that's how, for me, I found that to work best for me. And then I oversee them all.
Okay.
But by doing that, it allows them um, to develop a niche, if you will, and really learn that area of the law, and that helps my clients.
Okay. And so I guess there's also kind of a extended team of vendors, and maybe this falls on the contractors for things like accounting, things that aren't things that your company wants to do. I guess there's some other contractors or vendors that you outsource things to, like accounting. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. I have a good pool of persons that I work with, that if I need to pick up the phone and send something to them, like there is a gentleman, Quaki Simmons. He is a wonderful accountant. Um, and what I do is, whenever I get an estate case, I pick up the phone and give him a call and say, "Hey, Quaki, I need the taxes done, but this, can you do it?" I have a couple of other accountants, and other lawyers for different areas that I may not necessarily have a broad base of knowledge or have the time to handle. And I think for any entrepreneur, particularly if you're offering services, it is important to have your team on standby, because that even makes you look more credible. Like, people come to me because they know that I know who you can go to for this. Like, now I know if I need a patent attorney in Maryland, because the guy I was referring them to was in New York. So if I need a patent attorney in Maryland, I can say, "Here, look, here's Aisha." It makes me look credible because they're like, "Oh, she knows what's going on. She knows how, if she can't do it, she knows somebody that can." I think he went out again, Aisha. How are you doing with developing your networks?
I think I'm gonna have to work more on that aspect of it. I think one of the ways I am doing it is joining the Morgan Entrepreneurship Alumni Chapter. That's actually been really helpful
Mhm.
with working with other entrepreneurs across different areas. And from them with their expertise and their network. It's kind of like building and saying, okay, this is the type of assistance I need, and I know this person has that. So kind of like I'm building it through getting to know, getting to know people,
Right.
and who they're using or who they're working with, and seeing how it can fit with what I'm doing, and then with what my clients would need.
That sounds like a good deal. And the good thing about having that network is you're able to um, not feel like you're alone or you have to figure it all out. But I rely on my network not just to refer a case to, but sometimes I have a question. Like I may call you if I have a client and say, "Hey, Aisha, what do you think about this?" And so the networks that you develop are not only good for getting
I'm back.
client. Oh, you're back. Okay, we're just talking. But your networks are not only good for as developing a base to get clients, to send clients, but also you can pick their brains to figure out, how to get certain things done that you need done. And I'll give you a perfect example that one of the attorneys that I refer cases to, I called him actually this morning, and I said, hey, I have this question. I want to run this case past you. And I ran it past him. We talked it out. I came up with a viable solution, and it confirmed what my thoughts and theories were. And so those types of networks are very important.
Okay.
So what was the last question that I missed?
I don't even remember. How did we get there, Aisha? I don't even
We were
remember
just talking
now.
about network, and
Oh,
how you developing your networks and using it as far as your business and personal.
okay. So another question I wanted to throw out is trends. So I know, Marlene, you have a general practice, so you have a couple different fields.
Mhm.
But maybe if you could talk about one of the fields that you that you do most of your work in, or one of the more popular fields that you're in. Are you seeing anything new, anything maybe types of cases that are coming up that didn't come up before, or just trends in your industry, anything that's come up pretty recently that you can talk about?
I think that there is a lot of evolution in many different areas of the law, just by virtue, I guess, of how society evolves. I can really see a trend in family law where more fathers are now asserting their rights with respect to their children.
Hmm.
I see a lot more fathers now asking or seeking um, custody, whether it be joint or sole custody. Um, I'm trying to think some other trends that I see. I see in personal injury cases, I do see um, a lot more cases going to court now. Because the insurance companies are not, they're still suffering, if you will, if you want to call an insurance company suffering, but they're still suffering from the recession in which they're just not getting the premiums that they did when we were in better times. Hold on one second. I'm sorry. I'll let that go. They're not getting the premiums that we were getting in previous times, and so consequently, what you're seeing is that they're sending more cases to court because they're trying to take their chances. And I also see this that in litigation, courts are trying to give smaller judgments and settlements. You still see some big settlements, but by and large, because the money is just not there that used to be, you see and I'm saying for small to moderate size cases, you still have your big dollar settlements. But even if you take a look, if you remember, there was a case where the doctor was taking pictures of, the gynecologist was taking pictures, and they ended up settling with Johns Hopkins. They only settled, I think, for $91 million, if I'm not mistaken. Given the expansive or the large amount of plaintiffs, that's not a lot of money. And so those are some of the trends that I'm seeing now.
Interesting. So Aisha, you deal with IP and tech. So what are you seeing as trends in the IP area of law?
I don't know if it's trends, but I just know that there's just people who are trying to who are doing, I guess, like software, more like building applications and trying to figure out how can we protect that. You know, the patent laws have changed a bit, and they've, in some instances, it may still be a little unclear as to what to do if you have, you know, software. How should I go about protecting that? So I think that's still something that's a big, you know, focus, because we see every day, we see some new application that we're using or something that's just popped up, and it's like, okay, this is important, and it may become very valuable, and how do we go about protecting it?
Interesting. So you mentioned earlier that when you go around to these events, you meet founders who haven't really thought about it, or you know, people in the tech industry who have maybe created something but haven't really thought about how to protect it. What, I guess, why do you think people haven't thought about intellectual property protection? Do you think that is it that they think that it's going to be too expensive to go through the process, or is it just, why do you think they haven't thought about it?
Right. I think it's. I do think a lot of it is with financial reasons. As just getting a patent alone can be an expensive a fee, and then if you add to that the attorney fees, then that might scare some people off. And when they're bootstrapping and they're just starting their business, it's hard to justify that cost of an attorney and a patent for something that you're still building. And then if you're building software, it's even harder because you don't even know if it's gonna, you know, go through and end up being protected. So you're not sure if that's the way you want to spend your money. There are some firms that are out there that are assisting some startups, and so it kind of helps, you know, the startup go, I guess, get that protection a little earlier. But they're, you know, they're bigger firms, so they have a little more resources to do that kind of work with them. But for the most part, it's not something that they see in their face when they're building their product. You know, you're trying to get that, you know, your product to market, or get something that you can impress investors with. And so, that going to the attorney might be important, but then you might think, well, if I get invested, I can wait for them to, you know, fund that cost.
Okay. So this is kind of a side note question I just thought of. Have you actually worked with someone who is, or a company who is being sued for violating someone else's IP, intellectual property?
Well, no, because I did not do litigation, and so
Okay.
that's not something that I focus on.
So you're on the other side of the spectrum, people that have the intellectual property and they want to file patents, trademarks,
Yeah,
that
they
sort of
want,
thing.
yeah, the application. They're trying to get those get that protection. So I'm with that. It's called patent prosecution. So they're trying to get the patents granted, and so I'm on that part.
Okay, interesting. I think that's something that a lot of entrepreneurs might not realize, is that those are two different types of attorneys when you want to go after somebody who you think is infringing, and when you want to protect something that you've created. So
It doesn't have to be. It doesn't necessarily have to be. It's just it's a practice choice. I choose not to practice litigation, but and so yeah, some people might specialize in just litigation versus prosecution, but occasionally you might find a place where somebody is capable and okay with doing both.
okay, interesting. So for 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 each of you, let's take something light. What do you love most about your field, about what you do day to day? What keeps you energized?
Helping people. For me, I like being able to see the end result, that somebody is in a better position because they came to my office. So that gives me great joy.
Okay. Aisha?
Yeah, I think in that same vein, I remember when I was applying for law school, I think one of the things that I would submit in my personal statement would be that I always wanted to help others, but I didn't know how. And so obviously lawyers are advocates, and you're advocating on behalf of someone else. And so for me, I do a lot of volunteer work, and so it all goes into the same vein of I like helping other people.
All right, all right. So where do you all see your businesses respectively going in the future? You have plans to do anything new, any new types of anything, any new plans or things that you have lined up?
There are two things that I'm interested in. One, I'd like to be able to expand to other geographical areas. And then the other thing that I'd like to do is to be able to provide, if you will, soft advice. So instead of requiring a client to come in, to sit down, and to retain me to represent them, more so being able to, which is why I like Google Hangouts. Again, Sam, I'm going to be calling you about that. But being able to provide soft advice to people in ways that they can receive it, because not everybody can afford to come in and pay my hourly rate. But there still are people who are entitled to advice, who deserve advice, and I want to be able to help those people as well.
Okay, so that's interesting. So if I am a client, I have a family law matter. Um, I guess how do how does that process work? When I first say, hey Marlene, this is my issue. How do we go from me coming into you to you deciding whether or not it makes sense for me to become a client, or maybe I'm just someone who needs soft advice? What's the process like?
I think it depends on the level of help that you need. In taking family law, for instance, maybe you have somebody who has a court order, but is just trying to figure out how they can enforce the court order, or how they can, if they have a harsh past with their co-parent, how can they make sure that they prep up things in a way that makes it cheaper and that will give them the best outcome in the future. And so some of those things, they're not really ready for litigation, but if they wait until they're ready, they either will have to spend more money and more time to kind of go back and do things to fix things. One thing in particular is really just I can see me talking to someone, or either talking to a group of parents, saying, okay, you have an order. This is what you do now to make sure that your rights can be enforced. That would be the type of soft advice that I think that they may not necessarily have the money to come in for an initial consultation by themselves, but if I bring them together, and we have a kind of, this is how you need to set up visitation for your children. This is how you need to chart child support. This is what you need to do, X, Y, and Z. Two other areas that it works well with is bankruptcy and business startups. So as Aisha was saying, when somebody starts initially, they don't have a lot of money. They can't come and pay my regular fee to get their all of their stuff prepared. However, if I bring a group of 10 of them together, same amount of time for me, it's okay. That way I can charge them more along the lines of what they can afford, and they still get the same quality service. They just don't necessarily get strictly one-on-one. But in instance, as if with bankruptcy and also with corporate work, corporate startup work, they don't need to have my undivided attention. And they still can accomplish what they want.
So what types of things do your business startup type clients come to you for?
Anywhere from starting the startup paperwork, so getting all of their documents filed with the state and also the IRS, to going ahead and doing planning, strategic planning. I can do business plans for people, do structural development, how to set up their entity and also their operational structure in a way that will allow them to be successful. Helping them get whatever licenses and accreditations they need, anywhere from getting their 8A certifications to on the state and local level getting their MBE and WBE certifications completed. Also helping them, and this is something that a lot of people don't consider, but it is essential, making sure whatever documents they need, that they are set up by an attorney. And what I mean by that is, if you are a doctor and you're looking to open up your practice, all of those forms, just think about all of those forms that need to be signed when you come in. Can you get them from another source? You absolutely can, but they're not tailored for your business. So a lot of times I have businesses that come to me because they need to litigate based on a form that really was never meant to suit them. So those are just some of the things that I would do for, a startup entrepreneur. And even also helping them find funding, writing grants, figuring out financing, all of those things.
Interesting. Did you lose me again? Can you hear me?
Oh, I can hear you.
Oh, okay. Thought I dropped off again. All right. So we're coming toward the end of the hour, so I guess we can start to ask some lighter questions now. Get ready to wrap up. Don't want to hold you all too long. So one of the things that I hear from lawyers a lot is that when people watch like legal TV shows, it is like so far, it's so inaccurate, so far from the real life experience of lawyers. So do you all watch legal TV shows, or is it just too inaccurate that you just can't even watch it?
I don't watch direct, I guess, like the Judge Judy, that type of stuff, I don't watch. The closest thing that I will watch, I did watch off and on How to Get Away with Murder. That's the only one that I watched. The rest of them I can't do. And I used to watch, I'm probably showing my age, but I used to watch The Practice and Ally McBeal back in the day, but that was just sheer entertainment.
Okay.
But what I do find is that when I watch legal shows, they tend to, I can't relax. Because either I'm correcting them or I'm like, no, this is not how you do it.
Yeah.
I get all worked up. So after the show is over, there's no sense of, oh, that was a good show. Because it makes my brain work too much. That's why I don't watch SVU. Stuff like that. I don't watch it because it makes my brain work too much. And when I watch TV, I just want to relax.
Yeah. Aisha, how about you?
Well, I'm the opposite. I think because the legal field has been, used between law and cops and doctors have been used as a source of entertainment so much, I think I've become numb to expecting it to be anywhere based on reality.
Yeah.
I think the one that I did watch How to Get Away with Murder, And just from episode 1 that they had, first year law students doing internships, I was like, okay, I'm not gonna, I'm not gonna get bogged down in, in what they do with the law. And so I just took that out of the equation for the show. I watched, for Viola Davis, the acting and whatever crazy stuff. So I don't, but one thing I did, I used to watch People's Court, and I did it like recently, and I would watch it just to see how these people would be, representing themselves and knowing that they do not know the law. And you could see, like, even though I don't do litigation, obviously in order to take the bar, I had to study evidence and some criminal law, and so in civil procedure. And so just seeing it, seeing the way they're trying to present, evidence and things like that, is like, it's interesting to see the judge have to interact with people who aren't attorneys, because she's trying to be as plain as possible, explaining it to them. But you can tell she's, even though she's been doing it for a long time, you can still tell that she just wants to, probably deal with attorneys.
Cool. All right. So, who inspires you all? Who do you all look up to in your field as, hey, that's where I want to be in X number of years. What that person's doing that's who do you all look up to?
So that's a catch-22, because I think every lawyer is competitive in some respects, and so to some degree, I try not to look at other attorneys, but there are, of course, I love First Lady Michelle Obama. She's like the best. And I do, of course, I talked about my mentor, Gerald Smith, and he's deceased now, but also his daughter, Wendy Smith Barlow. And I think that I try to glean something from every attorney I come in contact with. So that way I feel like I'm on a continuous path of growth.
Cool. Aisha, how about you?
I guess for me, I don't know if it's particular people, but just like I said, because I'm starting out, I tend to look at other people who have either, started their own firm, especially as a solo, and then obviously people who are working in the patent field. That's really important to me, especially to see how they're going about that type of business, because like I said, it's such a specialized area, and in some ways it requires a lot of resources in some ways. And so just to see someone doing that as a solo attorney is to me is interesting.
All right. Favorite business book?
So I'm going to be real corny with this. I really say the Bible.
The Bible? Okay.
It keep me from jumping off the cliff sometimes. No. But honestly, for me, that is, there's a whole bunch that I glean from it. So that would be my favorite. And like I said, that's a corny answer, but that's all I got.
That works. A good book never steers you wrong. Aisha, any favorite business books?
I don't think I have any at this time. I think I've been reading a lot of legal, doing some studying lately, so I haven't been reading any as many business books currently. So I don't have any off the top of my head.
That's fine. Perfect segue into my next question. So your favorite legal resource, whether it's a book or online website, or just favorite resource for your industry.
Well, for me, being in patent law and intellectual property, I probably go to IPWatchdog.com.
What's that? IP Watchdog?
Yes, he's a patent attorney, and he also teaches. He teaches like the one of the patent exam study courses that I've taken, and he just dedicated a lot of time with sharing information about patent law and just keeping you updated on the changes in the law. So I like that side.
So what kind of course was that you mentioned?
Well, okay, so I guess just to back up a little bit, in order to be a patent attorney, you have to take a specialized bar that is just for the patent bar. So obviously, in order to be a licensed attorney, you can be licensed in any state as far as the jurisdiction or the District of Columbia. But in order to prosecute applications before the Patent and Trademark Office, you have to take an exam that they give out, and you need to be registered with the Patent and Trademark Office. So there are study courses in order to take that patent exam so that you become a registered patent attorney or agent. You don't actually have to be an attorney to be, to prosecute patents. But
Oh, you don't? Oh, interesting.
you have to have, technically, you have to have enough courses in an engineering or science discipline, and
Uh-huh.
that usually equates to if you have a degree in engineering or science, then you would have enough courses in that area, and so that's how you're. So long as you have a bachelor's degree in engineering or science, you are pretty much qualified to sit before the patent exam.
Okay. So, Marlene, favorite legal resource?
For practitioners, I would say any type of online research that you can do. Right now, I like Nexus. I'm using that now, and it's just like opening up a whole new world for me because we learned when I went to law school, we learned about the stacks. We were just getting into doing online research. So I'm like, man, you can figure this out real easy. Um, for laypersons, I think that NOLO actually is a great legal resource website to give you a lot of that you can read a lot about a lot of different areas of the law there. Um, I also like the Daily Record because it keeps me up on, that's the legal publication in the area. It keeps me up on things that are coming through. I think is there anything else. Since this is entrepreneurship based, I really like all of the entrepreneurial magazines and I read them quite often. I love Black Enterprise. I love
Created by a Morgan alum. Just
yes, exactly. That's why I said that first. I like Inc. and I like Entrepreneur, and a lot of times I'll read on their websites, and I've liked their Facebook pages, so I get things into my feed. But things like that, I think that a lot of what you want to do as an entrepreneur, there is a lot of information out about it that you can use to make sure you're better. I think that, and I'm glad you mentioned like what types of books and things like that, because when you're an entrepreneur, sometimes we get so busy in business that we fail to cultivate our knowledge base.
Mhm.
And that's how you edge yourself out of the industry by not continuing to develop yourself.
Awesome, awesome. All right, so we're all Morgan alum here, and I want to know what is your favorite memory from your Morgan days?
From beginning to, let me tell you, I love Morgan State University. I know that I made the right choice going to Morgan, and I would not trade it for the world. Now, and you all came in at a different time. I came in where we had to register for class. I'm telling how old I am. This is so sad. Um, I came in where we had all what is now what McKeldin Center. We registered, did financial aid, and all of that on the top floor in the ballroom in McKeldin Center.
Oh,
But one of my best memories, and I guess it's start to finish, was walking across during the Promethean procession and then completing that journey when we went to graduation. So that for me, because of and I really didn't understand the tradition behind it at the time. But as I look back on it, that was great. I'm a Delta girl, so pledging Delta was one of my best and worst memories. No, my best memory. No, definitely my best memory. And also just the friendships that I was able to develop there. Um, I still am friends with a lot of the people that I was friends with at Morgan, and Facebook helps that along a whole lot. Um, and even my time on the bridge, I understand that y'all not allowed to hang out on the bridge now. I'm so sorry about that. And I'm sorry we ruined that for you. But just, I mean, I had a great time at Morgan. I learned so much about myself, and also about my place and our place as a people in the world by going to Morgan. So I loved it all.
Cool. Aisha?
Well, I guess mine was more, I guess for the teamwork. It probably was even before I officially matriculated into Morgan. I actually was in a summer program before my freshman year, and it was basically through the engineering department, and they brought in a small group. It was about 30 of us, and we basically were, going through courses that were similar to what we would take in our fall semester. And it just taught us a lot about how we needed each other. And engineering, especially in the engineering department, because that's where I was at, it was just stressed that we were all in this together. And we carried that through. We some of us literally, our first semester, a lot of us took the same classes. Like our whole schedule was the same because we were all in this together. And then some of us ended up, by way it happened, we actually ended up having the same courses for the majority of our 4 years at Morgan because we just believed in that teamwork and believed in working together. And that's always been something that I, really appreciated.
All right. All right. Well, I want to thank you both for participating in our Alumni Speak. Thanks for taking the time out of your schedules to join me.
Thank you.
All right. So again, for everybody who's watching and everybody who will be seeing our recording, this Alumni Speak is a monthly series, a monthly production of the Morgan State Entrepreneurial Alumni Chapter. We are a new alumni chapter. We're part of the National Alumni Association, so we are a chapter of the association. And we meet every month. We have meetings on the first Tuesday of every month. We have a call-in number so that if you are an alum who's in another part of the country, but you want to participate in our meetings and our activity of what we are doing as alum entrepreneurs, feel free to do that. Our website is morganeac.org, morganeac.org. You can find out more information there. And we'll have a few other events coming up in the future. So as I mentioned, this Alumni Speak will be every month. So our next Alumni Speak, it's every last Thursday of the month. So the next one will be May 25th. It's always at 6 p.m. So we'll be featuring another industry and we'll find some more Morgan alum to share their stories. We haven't set the industry yet and haven't decided on our speakers, but stay tuned. We'll be sending out more information about that soon. And we also have our podcast. So The Bridge, it's the name of the podcast, and The Pathway to Big Ideas, that's the slogan. And that will be, that is published every Monday. So every Monday morning we have new episodes of The Bridge podcast, which you can find on our website as well. That's where we interview Morgan alum. It's a little shorter and kind of straight to the point sessions than what we have here at Alumni Speak, but it gives you a really good quick insight into what some of our alum are doing. So feel free to go and check out the past recordings of The Bridge on our website. And also later in the year, in the fall semester, we'll be doing a small business expo. So the tentative date for that is Saturday, October 15th. And that event will be bringing together different speakers to speak on different topics that are relevant to entrepreneurship, everything from financing, and we'll maybe have some session. Maybe the two of you can do a session at the expo. Maybe prepare some of our entrepreneurs for what they need to know in regards to their legal preparations and intellectual property, and a few other workshops as well. So that'll be an all-day event, and that'll be so tentatively on October 15th later in the year. So that's all for tonight. Thank you all for tuning in. Thank you two again for joining. And until next time, have a good night.
Thank you.